Kevin, Austin, my friend, welcome to the Syndicate Podcast. It is long overdue. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
I love what you've done with the space. Prime position. I like it.
I think we should get into this by checking some of the questions from the Instagram.
Yeah, let's do it. There was some good questions, so shout out to everyone that did ask a question.
Thank you. What was it like to participate in Coalition?
Yeah, it was epic. Probably the first type of video format competition that I've been involved in, I suppose.
Yeah.
But to go to, LA and...
was it Mexico as well?
The one I went on was LA and San Diego.
Okay, my bad. Different year.
Yeah.
Whole different year. Yeah.
And yeah, it was super epic. It was like way harder than I thought.
How many days did you have?
I think
Or
ours was
roughly.
10
Yeah.
or 7. 7 or 10 days.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And who was on your team?
So there was Devon, Jonathan Peroni, Morrison, Burrito Guido is the filmer.
Was your filmer?
Yeah.
And what was it like? You know, that's the question.
It was awesome. Yeah, I'd definitely do it again.
Yeah.
I'd love to. Like, I've been eyeing out all of the ones since, but it hasn't been as fitting, I suppose.
That was your year.
Yeah,
That
for
felt
sure.
like your year.
And I'd do it differently, I think, now. I think I went too hard, too quick. And
like
was,
in the week.
Yeah. And it was hard to kind of like keep up and... Yeah, just an interesting format, like filming clips with like a deadline and, you know, only so much time and balancing that with other team members as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, really fun. But, it was quite challenging. I think we were like stoked to be done by the end of it. We made an epic video. So
I went... in 2017, I remember as much as I loved it, it was like painful. There was a part of it that was like so bad, and it was like, if I'm being honest, scootering shouldn't be like this. Like, this is too much. Like, it was too hectic for me. I was like, this is
rigid.
It, you know, obviously up to the individual interpretation, and it's like, I loved the experience, and I'm sure so many riders would like agree and relate to what I just said, but also like still do it again.
It's a lot of external pressure, even though it might not be spoken.
Yeah.
You know, way different to like, starting your own project and you setting your own time frame and... Yeah.
Or just going out with a camera and filming for... But it is what it is, and I think the videos that come from it show that it's definitely worth doing.
Totally. I think some of the best scooter videos ever made have been the Coalition videos, for sure.
From Sammy Ladle, did you know at the time how iconic the Hat Gang in Canberra video would be?
It was a very different time, for sure. I think to answer the question directly, I don't think any of us had any idea how iconic that video would end up being.
Yeah.
But I think the reason it was so good was because at the time we had just planned to go to this new skate park in Canberra, and it was probably like the first like big convict park that was built in Australia.
Yeah, like the start of the boom.
So it was like, we need to go.
Yeah.
And it was just purely for fun and just to be on a trip with the homies, and I think that's what came out in the video more than anything. But it was a very different time. There definitely wasn't, there wasn't really like a promising future, you could say, in scootering at that time. Yeah. Like, it was really being built from the ground up. Yeah. So it was very different. I think most people truly did it because they enjoyed it,
Yeah.
And it definitely wasn't cool to scooter back then.
Yeah.
Whereas now I think scootering's like quite cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. How old were you at that time? And how long had you been scootering?
I would have been driving, I think.
Okay.
I don't think I drove on that trip, but I think it was when I started driving. So maybe like 16, 17 years old.
To take it back a further than that then, what is the introduction to scootering for you? You mentioned before skateboarding was a little bit before scootering, so I guess that would have to be your introduction.
Yeah.
What's the start of your extreme sports, fascination?
Yeah, I think my brother had a large part to do with it.
Yeah.
So I've got an older brother. He used to, I was like bombing hills in between his legs from a really young age. And so I think that's why I got into skateboarding. And then I was, going to the skate park like most weekends, and my mum would take me and hang around the whole time.
Yeah.
And I got introduced to scooters because I had organised to go to the skate park with a friend, and like I was going to go skateboard, and my friend invited one of his friends who brought a scooter, and that was probably the first time I'd ever seen a scooter.
Yeah. Do you remember how he was riding it? Like, do you vividly remember seeing like tail whips or a bri or something like that?
It was the first time I'd ever seen a Razor Pro.
Okay.
So back then it was like a beefy scooter compared to what I'd seen. And he was just doing like tire taps on a quarter pipes.
On the quarter,
and like 360s how to fly out. And I thought it was cool. Maybe like a week or two later, another friend showed me a Cody Donovan video. Yeah. And I think that was punk scooters. Yeah. And
you're not the first person to mention that on this podcast. I think Juzzy, you and him could probably talk about that.
That video is huge for anyone in that era, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. And I think I watched it like 3 times in a row, like when I first watched it. Yeah. And I was just like, wow, like this is insane. And at that point, I'd just gone into high school, and I went to quite a small school before I went to high school. Yep. So like my grade was like 200 kids, and I think that opened my eyes to like other scooter riders. Like there was more than, the one dude I'd seen at the skate park. There was actually like quite a few people. Yeah. And I was like skateboarding and scootering. Like I would take both to the skate park for like a couple of years.
Couple of years?
Yeah. I was doing both. I guess just as time went on, I just had way more fun on a scooter than I had on a skateboard. Like there was like this turning point. And around the same time, my school just opened up Monster Skate Park as a school sport.
Wow.
And it was like there was like one term of skateboard only, and then Monster Skate Park just allowed scooters in. And that's when scootering kind of took off, because it was huge, because scootering was massive at the time. Okay. And there was actually, I think there's actually a clip of Cody Donovan in punk scooters riding Monster Skate Park's big box before it was allowed. Okay. And the story goes that Cody went into Monster Skate Park with rollerblades, got in, and then whipped out his scooter and got those clips. Yeah. Wow. He might correct me on that.
Because
but
you
couldn't do it. You know. So there was these clips like, fuck, he's riding Monster Skate Park. Yeah. It was pretty monumental. And, Monster always had like there was some pretty iconic riders that work there, like Wazza work there, and Nick Air would be there all the time, and you could almost always go there and there was like a scooter presence. Yeah. So for a lot of kids, they would just migrate there. It was on a major train line. Yeah, it definitely took off.
So that's that you know, older brother getting you into skateboarding from as young as 2 years old, that being your, you know, extreme sport of choice up until 11, 12, finding out about scooters as you're going into high school. And at that time, are you a mad park rat?
No, I never was, which is like...
I didn't think anyone wasn't. I thought that it was just double whips and bries and...
All I rode was skate parks. But
yeah, but you know, like... Yeah.
The local park I had didn't have a fly out.
Okay. How does a park not have a fly out? That means it doesn't have a quarter.
It was prefab. So it was like...
there's nowhere to land on a prefab quarter. Yeah.
Yeah, for like the width of this table.
Yeah.
And like years later, the council like added concrete.
Yeah.
So like there later came a fly out.
I have to point out, for the sake of the podcast, I didn't start riding scooters properly till like 2011, 2012, which is like... So whenever people talk about the OG stuff, I'm like just sitting on the sidelines like, I wasn't part of that era. Yeah. So, but it makes me extra interested. Like,
it's fascinating.
Yeah. It's one big part of scootering that I can only relate to from those like golden era stories. But
it's interesting that we both went from skateboarding to scooters.
Yeah.
Which I've been told by...
I mean, a lot of the best riders do. I mean,
but it's quite rare, like, to already be an established skateboarder. Like, you're quite good. And then to be like, nah, fuck it, I'm going to ride scooters.
Yeah. Now do it when you're like 19 years old and imagine how much shit you get. It's a lot. I got a lot of shit being like an older, maturer, almost grown up skateboarder.
2011, you said.
Yeah. That was peak scooter hate time.
I think that's like, for a long time, like what I loved about scootering was that most people that chose to ride scooters back in that time, like did it because they loved it. Yeah. Like, and that was what I would connect to, is like, damn, you're like, people are talking shit on you and you're still doing it.
Yeah.
Like, sick. Let's be friends. And what's interesting is like skateboarding was in that position and surfing was the counter.
When I was in grade 8 and I skated, being a skateboarder, the labels were like, oh, you fucking druggo, skater boy, like hardcore teased. And I was like one of a few skaters at my high school. Years later, once it's finally cool, go from skateboarding to scootering and it all just starts again. God damn it.
Yeah. I think it's a good thing to get past though.
Which I guess would bring us to that, what's the next step in your scootering? Get me on that timeline. Help me live, the OG days.
Well, yeah, for a while, it was like getting to know the scene. Yeah. And at that point, like the Australian scooter scene was like huge.
How?
It was. I give all the credit to Cody.
Yeah, but
and like
was that okay? Yeah, okay, yeah.
So like, there was like just from Jammo alone. Like
what's Jammo?
Explain
it for I know what it is, Penrith. But explain it for the people.
So it's the birthplace of scootering in Australia, I would say.
Jamison Skate Park.
Yeah. And a lot of scooter riders would just like imitate what Cody and his crew was doing.
Yeah.
So
who were the other riders in Cody's crew?
There was
what are
like
the names?
DSC.
Yeah, I remember DSC.
And that was...
What'd that stand for?
Dialed Scooter Crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, before dialed scooters were a thing.
Yeah. Wait, before dialing your scooters was a okay. Yeah, so it just meant... It didn't mean like your scooter sound like a basketball, like dialed. It just meant like they were just dialed, like just a cool word.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was about dialing scooters.
Well, it was like... That's when dialing scooters came in, I guess.
I worked at a shop that had the slogan "Be experts in dialing scooters."
Here's an interesting one for you about dialed
life.
Scooters. Yeah. So, in getting to know the scene, Billy Rainbow was one of those riders.
Yep.
And a funny story is that Billy used to like dial people's scooters for money at his local skate park, Clarendon.
Yep. And amazing skate park.
And I would make jokes to Billy like years later being like, you're the reason.
Yeah.
Like everyone wants their scooters dialed. Yeah. It's just like once they heard it and saw it, it just like went huge. But going back to Dald's DSC,
yep, seeing them at Jamison. Who was in the crew?
Cody Donovan, Dylan Mercer, Aaron Brand, which is not Aaron Brandston.
Not to be confused with Aaron Branston.
I used to confuse the two.
Yeah.
And I think that
Devon Latham. Is that wrong time? Not
it
yet.
Came a little bit later,
and a bit off to the side.
That was the trio that I remember.
Okay,
and then there was like an evolution of it.
Yeah.
Jackson Bartlett's another dude that came out of the same skate park.
Yeah.
But there was like Team Aussie Scooters, which got like kind of evolved from that, and that was like the Clarendon crew.
Yeah.
Where Billy rode, and so.
And where do you fall into all this? You're looking at them on YouTube, seeing them at the skate parks,
watching them on YouTube, following them all on MySpace. And
MySpace. I had MySpace.
Yeah, it just got to a point where I would be riding and trying to go to all of these different skate parks I could. And
that you'd seen them ride at?
That I'd seen them ride
at. To ride the same skate park as them or to meet them?
Both.
Oh, both. Yeah,
both. Yeah. Like, I hope Cody's going to be at Jammo would be a common hope.
Well.
But yeah, so it just got to a point where, I'd be bumping into these people I'd see online and I'd just be some kid.
Okay, so they weren't like, Kevin, what's going on? No. Like, far from that still.
Yeah, I don't think I was even really, like, making videos at that point.
And you're probably, like, a few years younger than them still.
Yeah, definitely not at the same skill level.
Yeah. Is anyone at the same skill level as Cody Donovan? Did anyone ever?
Well, it was a pretty high standard. Like, Royce King, he was the same age as me. And he was, like, killing it.
Yeah, okay. Was he like sponsored or anything at that time? No, he was. Okay, yeah. So you didn't have any sponsored friends or anything like that? It was just, you were just on the outside looking in at this time. Yeah.
I don't think even Cody was sponsored.
Wouldn't Punked Scooters be? That's not a sponsor. That wasn't
I think his...
Maybe that
I could be wrong, but I think his first sponsor was Micro.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get to that when you first, I guess, started, becoming a more of a someone or filming.
I'll tell you,
how does that...
A monumental moment for me, which is that...
That's what I want, the monumental moments.
There was a day, like a big ride day that was organised at Chatswood Skate Park.
Yep. By who? Who organises ride days back then?
I think it was Nick.
Okay, yeah.
That organised it. Or maybe was her. But it was at Chatswood Skate Park, so Jackson Manzi's local skate park.
Yeah.
And like everyone from Sydney went on the same day. So I met a lot of people, and the video I think was Chatty Chat. That was like the first time I was amongst the scene.
Scooter scene.
Yeah. And then I was after that day, I would ride Chatswood Skate Park quite a lot.
Yeah.
Because I was like, this park's sick. It had, like this big day there, and I was like gravitated towards it. And I was watching Jackson Manzi's, like all of Jackson Manzi's videos at that point.
Yeah.
And I remember I was at Chatswood Skate Park by myself, I think. And Jackson Manzi had got off a bus from school and walked past the skate park, and he stopped and then like said hi to me.
Yep.
And that was like a monumental part of, I guess a change in the direction of scootering for me.
Was the high a recognition of like, you're a good scooter rider, you're a cool dude, I'm going to say hi to you.
Some degree.
Because I say hi to lots of people.
Yeah, but I think as a kid, however old I was at that point, I was like, holy shit. Like, to be recognized.
Gone out of his way to, like,
some level.
Say hello. You're like, oh, this dude who I look up to heaps is like, been like, what's up, dude?
Yeah. It wasn't just like it
didn't just wave
casual,
to,
you know?
Yeah.
And from there, it kind of just blew up. Like,
you just checked your backpack and had a VX in it, and it was, and you were like, all of a sudden in the streets.
Yeah. You could write it that way. I guess just from that point, there was a couple of local riders from my local skate park, which was like Clarkey and Dean Crafter. Don't
know Dean.
He's one of the first riders for Downside Scooters.
Okay, yeah. I know Dean Clarkey, as the owner of Downside, but not the Dean. And I know Clarkey.
They were like my way in with Jackson Manzi.
Yeah. So how were they in with Jackson?
I don't know.
They were just boys.
Yeah.
And they bring you
they were
in.
pretty good at themselves.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
But that was kind of like my in to then, like, you know, ride. Like, we'd be riding as a crew. And, like, I'd meet Aaron and I met Sean Furs, Bennett Harradine, Alex Collins. And that's when it started branching out. And I was just like, wow, there's actually, like, a community to be a part of. Without them, there wouldn't be scootering in Australia.
Well, there wouldn't have... You weren't... Who would you have looked at to...
Yeah. It's what I think... The more I got into it, the more I learnt that it was something to be a part of, rather than just be a participant.
Yeah.
And that really changed things. So then, you know, there was at that point as well, like, video production started to, in scootering started to pick up, and then there'd be like day edits and ride days. So it was a really cool time, for sure. But I guess as the timeline goes on, that's when things really started changing. It was like when I was going out with other scooter riders that were, you know, they were better than me, and there was a noticeable gap to close. You know? And so there was...
You started wanting to, like, keep up or reach that.
Yeah. And it just kind of evolved.
When you say going out, street? That's that's kind of what I'm trying to get to. Like, when does,
at that point, like, there was, like, Ben Harradine had a proper street video that came out. Jackson was making street videos.
Was he already on Proto then? Was that like...
No,
that's like way before that. Okay. Yeah.
Skater HQ.
Okay. Yeah.
I think he was sponsored by it at the time.
Okay, so you're hanging out with sponsored riders, like at this.
You could say so.
Yeah,
but it definitely blew up at that point.
Yeah,
in its own way.
Yeah,
you know, and a lot of those people stayed with it for a long time.
Yeah,
so it was really easy to stay involved, and there was always people to ride with, and it got to the point where I wanted to make videos, so I started making videos, and once I did, then my own scootering started to evolve. Like,
of course,
I think my first sponsor was Scooter Zone.
Yeah.
Like the American Scooter Zone. It just kind of blew up from there, and I'd jump from Scooter Zone to Downside Scooters.
Wait. You got... So this is... Sponsorship.
Yeah.
We're talking sponsorship.
John Archer was the dude that got me on Scooter Zone.
Okay, yeah. Was he riding for them or working for them?
He was riding for them. Yeah. And it kind of just like blew up from there. I met John totally online.
Yeah.
Like, I found him on YouTube. And he was doing like whip manuals on a manual pad.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa.
Wow. Yeah.
So we met up at my local skate park. That's how I got to know John. And it just became all of these different worlds within scootering in Sydney just became smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
Like it was super interconnected.
And okay, so you get on Scooter Zone, and what age, roughly?
Well, this would have been around the same time as Hat Gang in Canberra.
Okay, yeah. All right, we're there. Yeah. You know, like I was trying to like gauge, like you were like, oh, I just, got into high school and I started scootering with my friends and I became a part of the community and I realized there was this community, and then I sponsored by Scooter Zone, and then Hat Gang came out and Friendly exists. Like boom, like it just
it definitely just exploded really quickly. I think Friendly was like established a bit before then.
Okay,
and it was quite tight though. It was Jackson and Aaron, Ben Harradine, Alex Collins.
And so when you were going out with them, were they like friendly and you were like a tag along and eventually became
you could
friendly?
Say so. Like we would ride skate parks mostly.
Okay,
Just I think what was really cool about Friendly is from the get-go it was more so about who you like. To be a part of Friendly, you had to be someone that everyone was happy to hang out with. Yeah. And that was like it
was a crew.
Yeah, just a YouTube channel, really. Friendly was already established, and I was like riding with a lot of those dudes around the same time as me getting on Scooter Zone. Yeah.
And I guess the next one would it be like Downside? How did that come about?
Someone could probably refresh my memory. I think there was an aspect of me
reaching out. Yeah.
And at that point, all they had was like their Comet wheels, which were like
all they had
pressed
eagles.
It was huge, all these different coloured eagle wheels, but with a Downside logo on it.
Amazing,
And
I sold a lot of those when I was at
and that was like that was so appealing. And I think like John and I felt quite disconnected from Scooter Zone, being the only Australian dudes. Yeah. So I was like, ride for a brand that makes their own parts.
An Australian brand. And,
that evolved into something that was really sick. For like a number of years.
You were with Downside for a long time.
Yeah. That came a little bit later, but that was what I moved on to.
Yeah. What was your life like at that time? Are you still in high school at this stage? Are you only riding on the weekends? Like, what is life during this period?
Yeah, a lot of that was high school. Yeah. And I'd be riding Monster Skate Park every second Friday till close. Ride most weekends. And it was kind of just like every weekend, like go to a new skate park. For years.
And how much is street riding a part of your life, like in the streets?
I would say it's a big part, but it wasn't, something that I was...
Not how it became.
Like I wasn't like dedicated to filming street videos.
Because you used to film with proper cameras and put videos up on YouTube at parks. Hat Gang Canberra.
Yeah, there was no like distinction. It got to a point where I was like, I don't want to film park videos anymore.
When was that point?
That was probably when I left school. And actually, it was... So I left school.
Finished grade 12, graduated.
And had to make the decision.
Scores? Like, are you an honest student?
To be honest, I did not try at all.
I feel like you wouldn't have had to. I feel like you're smart enough to have...
Well, I saw my grades and I was like, damn.
Did good for not trying. Yeah. That's the kind of vibe.
But there was so much stress around
I remember
me not taking it seriously. I was like, fuck. This is going to backfire badly.
So finished school, straight A student without even trying. Nah.
Not quite.
And then you had to decide on...
I just had to decide, what I was going to do after.
With my life.
Yeah.
Now we're getting to the juicy stuff.
Yeah.
You graduated. I cannot relate.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty stressful, to be honest. Like,
was it like go to uni? Like you're going to go to uni now? Or
I don't think I had like this, like no one in my life was like, you need to do this or you need to do that. But I think there was this societal pressure that I should be thinking, long term, or like I should be taking things more seriously.
Yeah.
And I guess that led me to making one of two decisions, which was either to do an apprenticeship, and that was probably going to be carpentry or cabinet making.
Yeah.
Or I take a gap year to figure it out.
Yeah. Has anyone ever taken a gap year and like
this is
gone back and done what they
this is now my 13th year of the gap years. So
holy shit. Has it been 13 years since you graduated?
Yeah. I think so.
Can we get an A?
Sorry, 11.
Yeah. Still.
Yeah.
How old are you now at the time of recording this?
28.
28?
Yeah.
Jesus. I remember we were celebrating your like 26th birthday at like the Undies house.
Yeah.
Or 25th even. Fuck.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Man, guys, it flies by. You have to ride your scooters.
Yeah.
You have to ride your scooters. Yeah.
And I don't regret anything. Yeah.
But 13th, 11th gap year. Yeah.
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 And when I decided to take the gap year, I didn't really have that intention for it to go on forever. I was just like, all I want to do right now is scooter. And so I'm going to leave room to be able to do that, and I'll figure out what I want to do later.
How'd you live? Did you just have awesome supportive parents that gave you money while you scooted for the year? Or
in the last year of graduation, I was working at KFC.
Yep.
And then I got a job at Scooter Hut.
When?
In the same year.
Yeah. So you've skipped a big part. You're in grade 12, you got a job at a scooter shop.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's like,
And that changed a lot, because I think that was the first proper scooter store there was in Sydney.
I was going to say, Scooter Hut was birthed in
dedicated
the Gold Coast, but
yeah. So I decided to take a gap year, and I was working at Scooter Hut at the time, and riding. And I guess scootering changed for me, because I had the time to actually, like, a lot more time with myself and my thoughts, and I was like, all I want to do is scooter, so like let's just make videos to the best of my ability and see what comes from it. Like, that was just what I wanted to do at that point.
Yeah. And is there like a time when you were saying, I was trying to say before, like, when did street, really become like the thing? And was that
for me, it was probably that. Like, I started taking it a lot more seriously.
Yeah.
And by that point, there was like a lot of street video, like dedicated street riders and street videos that had come out.
Who and what? Well, what was the,
Matt McKean videos, and I think Urban Art was making like Georgie Lewis, and
so the best video part ever. Yeah,
more or less.
With the best soundtrack ever.
All of these street videos would pop up, and this was around the same time, so it kind of gave me a path to go down that I hadn't gone down before, and I had the time to do it as well. So, can you say what year that would be, or is that getting too hard? That was about 2012.
Yeah. So I'd been riding for a year at this stage.
Yeah.
That sounds about right with the Urban Art videos, and the Matt McKean videos would have been
a bit before.
They would have been out for 2-3 more like years before that. Like
But I would say, like, it was the combination of videos from Matt McKean and other people doing it, like, really solidified it.
Yeah.
As a way of writing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And to take it a bit more seriously. I guess.
Yeah. Did you have like a first big part? Was there like a video part from like Kevin Austin Downside? Or
I think
like,
you can still watch it actually.
Yeah.
I think it's just called Kevin Austin Web Edit.
Okay, yeah, not Downside or something.
And that was, it still has, I think, maybe a couple of part clips, but it was like street. So and that was like me coming, I was in high school at that point.
Yeah, filming that and probably released it.
Made that video. And then the video that came after that, I don't know. Maybe it was my Downside video.
Yeah.
There was like...
See, there's a
lot of videos that I've been a part of.
Yeah. And I feel like that was kind of the thing then is like, I'm assuming there was like I'm infamously bad at remembering video parts and specific parts and stuff, hard. But I'm assuming there's friendly crew-tages dropping at this stage.
Yeah, like I'd featured in Hat Gang in Canberra and Project Swiss Cheese 1, 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So Sean would have a large part of that influence for filming Street because he was like the dude that was filming Street and putting the videos together.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I worked on a video with Sean, which I think is just Kevin Austin is on Downside Scooters.
I
think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
And that was, my first proper dedicated street video.
Yeah.
And that was like,
See, I remember that time period. There was, when I first started working with Rob and Unfair, when I first started riding scooters, 2011, and that's when I started to meet you on these trips. But I think the first time was actually you guys, where you came to Queensland and we met at Runaway Bay. Crazy.
That was my introduction to Queensland, for sure. Yeah.
The funny contrast is that at that time, you and Jackson and Aaron were like gods to me and Marshall and Nathan.
I think that's the great thing about scootering is like, I think that often is mirrored, like there's always like this, like, wow, like these dudes have been killing it for however long, like on their own kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's just this mutual respect.
Yeah, it was definitely such a thing. Like you guys were that, the blueprint of street riding in Australia. One thing we could never get around to in those early days was SD. We just could never source and figure out, and like you guys were filming SD and that was so cool. That was so legit and so street, and we were just like these shit cunts from Brisbane with HD cams. Like, oh, so lame. It's not even street, bro. It's fucking HD. Like,
yeah, there's a big stigma around HD.
Man, it was so crazy.
Yeah. Like everyone was resisting HD. Like, which is pretty funny to look back on.
Yeah. I mean, but even now, it's still quite agreeable upon that SD has such a beautiful
it has a different
look,
feel.
Like, yeah.
But I give that credit to Sean.
Yeah.
And Manzi.
They were doing that, filming.
Yeah,
that,
bought a VX.
Yeah.
But Sean was the dude with the Panasonic DVX.
Okay.
And he had that from like day dot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know where he got the idea to get one.
Where are we at now?
I guess started to meet people outside of Sydney.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was going on like trips. And
when did you first start traveling internationally on a scooter?
Well, I'm pretty fortunate to have been traveling for most of my life.
Yeah.
Before that, but just family overseas in the UK, and I would take my scooter. So at that point, I'd already been to like Singapore and Malaysia and Dubai. Yeah. With my scooter.
Oh, with your scooter. Yeah.
And I have like clips from
riding street.
Riding skate parks.
Okay. Yeah.
My first like proper trip, I funded myself, and that was to America. And that was like probably around
Didn't we all?
That was probably like around this time frame too, because when I left school, it was like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And I was working.
Yeah.
So I saved up this money to go to America.
Yeah.
And that was the first proper
Who with?
trip. Just solo.
Who'd you meet there?
It was
what
so
do you mean
random.
Just solo.
Yeah.
How do you just go to America solo to ride your scooter?
Yeah.
Had you talked to anyone online?
Well, that's what was so random about it, because I'd hit up. I wanted to go to Chicago.
Yeah.
For the Chicago Street Jam.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I want to go. Who do I know from?
Yeah.
And I didn't know anyone, but I just like hit up. I remember hitting up Jeff Mroz, Kirk Svensson, and Busty Justy.
Yep. Busty Justy.
Or maybe it was just Kirk and Jeff at this point.
Yeah.
But anyway, Jeff was just like, yeah, man, you can stay at my place. Yeah. Never met him before or talked to him before this point.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, bought a ticket.
Far out.
Landed, stayed with Jeff.
Yeah. At
his place and met Kirk and all the local Chicago dudes and went to the Street Jam, was filming clips there and like filmed a bunch of clips I was really stoked with on that trip. And that was really cool. Yeah. I think that was the first time I traveled solo too, just generally.
Yeah. I like how you said it was self-funded.
Yeah.
Because there would be a lot of scooter riders that throughout their whole life, they'd, never traveled, and then through getting sponsored, they get hooked up a trip, and you're like, oh my God, like that's such a, would be so different to them. But I can relate to the self-funding, and I know a lot of scooter riders, and people, watching the videos, or, people, kids that just don't realize how many pro scooter riders, or just how many passionate scooter riders spend tens of thousands of dollars a year getting around to street jams in different countries and stuff like that. And even if they have sponsors, the sponsors help a tiny bit, or, the sponsors give you scooter parts, and especially the time that you're talking about. My first scooter trip was to France, and it was 100% self-funded, even though I worked in a scooter shop and had sponsors and stuff. It's I just think it's an important thing to point out. That first trip is, don't be waiting for a ticket from someone. Go out and see the world
done any
on your
of the
own.
Things I did if I waited for that.
Yeah.
And what would be funny is tallying up how much money I've spent off my own back.
To travel to ride your scooter.
Yeah. It'd be pretty insane.
It would be a very large number.
Yeah. But the
plane
perception
tickets are expensive.
Of me was that I was traveling the world as a scooter rider, someone was funding it. I don't know if people thought it was me or not.
Well, I think kids think that. I think, I say kids. When I say kids, I mean anyone following your riding or whatever. At the time, people just think that the pro scooter riders flying around. Sometimes it is later in life. It's like that, but we're still a while away from then. For a very long time, it was like you were going to ride for flavor. I just remember that being a thing. Okay,
shout out Dean.
The maddest cunt there is, basically. Dude, how much he did for street scootering in Australia is insane. It felt like years of just watching you.
Well, I was riding a flavor deck.
Out of your own choice, because for liking them. There was just this long time where it was you were sponsored by Downside, but just didn't seem like too much was going on there, and you were Kevin Austin. Everyone else on the outside's is he gonna get on Ethic? Is he gonna get on it's the perception would have been you could ride for anyone. When are you going to? It was like you wouldn't accept a sponsor That's what it. That I remember thinking that like he must have an email or a DM from every brand in the industry, and you were just like, it seemed like you were working on something with flavor for a long time. It didn't happen, and I guess, then Urban Art. That was the final. Like finally, you. Took a sponsor. That was like big.
Well, I mean, to
speak on that,
a lot of it was, and I think I would have handled it differently if I could go back.
Yep.
But it was me not accepting anything unless it was paid.
Yeah.
And that was like,
So sponsors were talking to you.
Yeah. I was like, I want to get paid and I don't want to settle for less than that.
Yeah.
And the industry just couldn't really offer it unless you were like Cody.
Yeah. The industry just couldn't offer it unless they were willing to.
Well,
nah.
Yeah, it was a different time in the industry, but it was, I think it cancelled out more opportunities.
Then it got you.
And like Dean,
like
was like giving me flavor deck after flavor deck. I was prototyping new parts for like years. Not paying for any of it. So I was sponsored. But I wasn't doing anything for Dean or for
you
flavor.
were like, I will not publicly do this until
and
this.
So, shout out Dean because he supported me. Through many years.
Literally.
And
that would have been that like 2012 to 15 or whatever.
It definitely got me through because
on like the best decks of the time as well.
They were amazing. So that was kind of like where I was at with flavor. And
do you remember other? You don't have to name them, but was there more than that? Was there multiple? Was there other companies reaching out to you that were like, "Hey, we want to sponsor you," and you said,
"Not really."
Okay.
No. No. Like in my head, it was like this industry is like not. And I feel about it. I feel the same way now, which is like the industry is not big enough to support every rider that deserves it.
You know, of course.
And so it's. I think that's just a part of it, and that kind of like the positive that came out of that was that I knew I was doing it because I enjoyed doing it, and that's where Urban Art came in. And like it, I think I got like 6 or 7 payments from Urban Art. And then they went under. Was
it that soon? Wait, but were your payments every 3 months?
These were,
or was this? Are you saying 6 or 7 months?
I think month payments.
Damn, dude.
So
it finally happened, and then it.
And because of Urban Art, like, I actually don't remember the whole story with what happened, but now there's a company that
sold,
bought the brand. But through that, I was like, damn. Like, where do I go now? And I planned to go to Coalition, and they'd agreed to fund it. And so I actually self-funded that Coalition trip as well.
Oh, the one we were talking about before. So they didn't, because that was like at the time. Okay.
But I had just got the 6 wide. Like they'd sent me, that was like the last thing they kind of sent me. It was like this 6 wide.
Which was a
great
that was like gold then.
And that was kind of like, that left me in an interesting spot because I wanted to continue to scooter. And I was getting paid. I got used to it. And then it dropped off again. So it was like,
When you say you're getting paid, how much was it helping?
It kind of just meant that I didn't need to like live week to week as such. Because I was like during this whole timeline as well, but from finishing school to up until this point, I was managing the Scooter Hut Sydney store.
So in the background of all this, it's important to note you were and not just working like you were managing, rosters, inventory, stock takes, like the running the shop. Someone comes in angry and wants a refund and this and that. You're like, okay, I got to talk to head office, put this through. Like you were the man that knew what was going on. Yeah.
But even
a real
then,
job.
I was like, I refused to work 5 days.
Yeah.
So I was on a 4-day contract.
Yeah. I'll never work more than 4 days in 1 week. Yeah. I need at least 3 for
So like looking back, I've set all of these like, you know, like
constraints,
rigid constraints that, you know, like got me what I wanted, but maybe I'd do things differently now. But to answer your question, the pay that I was getting from Urban Art meant that I didn't have to live so much week to week.
Yeah.
And it gave me the flexibility to be able to travel more and have the time off.
Yeah, be like, I want to take a week off work and I also have some money in the bank to spend on this week off.
And it was like getting to that point where like I would have been 24, 25 at that point. So I didn't, like I wanted to be making some extra money to play with, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with it, but I didn't want to be like just scraping by.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And that's how I guess I looked at it, was how can I make this sustainable?
Yeah, definitely. And what happened with Urban Art?
Yeah. So
where's the next bit?
So for a while I was talking, was it Jeremy?
Was he the TM then?
I could be so off. But I was talking to one of the original owners of Urban Art for ages, and then
Jeremy was an original team manager. I think Jeremy Lanfranchi, if you're talking about him, but I don't know if he still had anything to do with it at the time you did.
Well,
he was definitely old ownership.
Yeah, so
working for old ownership.
I was talking, and you know, that was my reference point to Urban Art, and then it got to a point where I just stopped getting messages back.
Yep.
So I'd like organize this coalition trip.
Yep.
And then when it come to getting the money, it was just
there was no pays coming through, and there was no. Yep.
And I was like, oh well, it is what it is.
Yep.
I'm gonna send it. So
go on a coalition anyway. Yep. Got your 6 bone deck, and
the money I got from Urban Art probably helped me have that money.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway,
of course.
So I went to coalition and enjoyed that. Came back to Sydney.
Yep.
And I think that coalition trip just got me really excited for scootering again. And Sydney's scene and like the golden days of Friendly had like started slowing down at that point, and you know, it kind of got to a point where just most people had to either find a job and make a living, or live off government benefits and continue scootering. So,
which is, in my opinion, the life.
Yeah, it is
government benefits and scootering. That's
not everyone is fortunate enough to
be able to get it. Yeah,
to get it.
Yeah,
and so a lot of the riding in Sydney and the crew that I was riding with had slowed down a lot. Yeah, and so I more or less was just like, where is scootering happening? And at that point, it was Brisbane. Oh. And it was like, like Syndicate
it definitely
Native
was right then. Like it was huge.
Popping off. And, I think at that point, you'd already been sending me parts for years as well.
For years?
Yeah.
Not years.
Dean was sending me parts, and you were also sending me parts. Like it would be so rare, but whenever I would ask for something, you would just like send it. Yeah.
I was playing the long game, baby.
Yeah. So I was like, like Brisbane seems sick. Like I'm going to go there. And then So I'd bought a van at that point.
So you were looking at the Sunshine State.
Yeah. I just had to move.
You got a van.
And yeah, I was with my partner Bailey at the time.
Yeah.
And we were kind of both just getting over Sydney. We were like, yeah, we're going to get a van. And we bought a van. And for a few months we were just working and building that and chipping away so we could have the money to just leave.
Yeah. Which is a thing I seem to remember about you is you seemed to work for certain amounts of time to then get certain amounts of time of no work.
For a while that's what I did because that's all I could do.
Yeah.
Because I had a job.
Yeah.
I was okay, I need to book time off.
Yeah.
And I would be okay, I'm going to save a bunch of money, have my time off, and then have the job to come back to. Scooter Hut was so good for that. Yeah. It was because I was writing for brands that we stocked in the store, which was incredible. Yeah, I guess that eventually did come to an end. And I kind of think one of the things I've learnt over the years is nothing good lasts forever. Yeah. And so I think we need to live every moment the best we can, but we also need to let go of things that, have lost that essence.
For sure.
So yeah, I decided to save up a bunch of money and leave Sydney in the van, and I came to Brisbane, and that was not a definite move at that point. Yeah, we had just
you were just van lifing,
gone north, exploring the country.
That's right.
Taking
we were at the Taringa
just a
house.
mad break from the hustle of working and filming and and then I was getting
that was your holiday,
getting amongst what you guys had here. Yeah. And I think I can't remember how long we were on the road for, but we were traveling up and down the East Coast, and eventually had to go back to Sydney to see family. I think we went back to Sydney to work over Christmas.
Okay, yeah.
And I went back to Scooter Hut for a bit.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you hadn't
a casual.
Yeah, you hadn't moved yet. You were still
I was still.
You were nomad at that stage. Yeah.
And funny enough, I was living out of my old place that I used to just living out the front in my van at my mum's place, and just bouncing around, trying to make money to then leave again. Yeah. And
so when do you get to Brisbane, or how do you get to Brisbane? What did that look like? I mean, I was there, but I'm asking you anyway.
Which was a very interesting time.
Yeah. But it was a bit, when you say interesting time, I assume you're referencing the pandemic. We were at the Taringa house, and I remember you and Bales came and parked up at the Taringa house for a week. And was that when Juzzy was also with you and you went up?
Yeah, went to Cairns.
So that's before you'd moved. You were just traveling. Yeah.
And then we were theorizing should we go back to Sydney, see our families, make money, and come back?
Yeah. Move to Brisbane. Yeah.
So we'd made that decision, I think.
Yeah.
At that time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that became our next plan.
Yeah.
Was to go back and save money to come back.
Yeah.
And so that kind of took us into the start of 2020.
Yep.
And we'd just left our jobs.
Yep.
Partner and I. And hit the road, and we went south first. We were going to go to Tasmania and then come to Brisbane.
Yep.
And then all the borders started shutting.
And you made a break for the motherland.
Yeah, we heard that the Queensland, New South Wales border was closing. It was 48 hours. They were we're closing the border in 48 hours. Yeah. And we were at the complete other border. Yeah. The Victorian border.
Yeah.
We're just
we can make it.
Now's the time to go.
If we go, we can make it.
We just turned around and just boosted it.
Man, that's
Called my mum, and I was I'm moving to Brisbane. Are you around tonight? like she just freaked out.
Did you go and give her a hug and a kiss? Like, I'm out.
Like this is, yeah.
Was that like hectic? Was she like?
At that time it wasn't, because it wasn't like.
We didn't know what was coming.
Didn't know what the extent of it all was. And
but I mean, was your mum like, Kevin, calm down, this is crazy. What do you mean you're moving, like running across the border?
She was a bit like, this is all too soon.
Yeah.
But
you're like, I got to scoot these Brisbane
Well, I
spots.
guess we'd already in our mind been like, we're doing this move.
You were like doing
so it has to happen now or it's not happening.
It just preemptively got like thrown on everyone. You already knew.
Yeah. So we did it and drove like 18 hours in like a day and a half.
Yeah.
And just boosted it.
Damn.
Quarantined in Nathan Fleming's house for like 2 weeks.
In his unit.
In his unit. So shout out to Nathan.
And we were like, I would visit. I remember I'd bring coffee. I don't know if you were still in quarantine at that stage or not. Yeah, like people were allowed to visit. You just weren't allowed out.
It was weird.
Anyway.
But yeah, that was the official move to Brisbane. Yeah. And so like we were riding like flat rails.
Out the front.
I
remember.
And like.
Yeah.
It was a weird time, but then we like finished quarantine and it was pretty chill for a while. Like we were all going out riding and stuff again. Like it had went through these weird phases.
Yeah. The DIY that we built.
Yeah.
Near Morningside.
That was cool. Yeah. While it lasted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that period we're there.
Yeah. And that was the time where I came to you and was just like, I was talking to like the new owners of Urban Art, or like theorizing how it was going to continue. And I was just like, well, I'm in Brisbane. Like you've been hooking me up for years. All these dudes are sick. Like Native just felt like a really good fit. So I came to you. Yeah. And we were like out the back of Nate's place outside. And I just put it on you. And then I guess from that...
You tell your version of the story, then I'll tell my version.
I guess my version was that it was like well received and I was hyped, but nothing was like official at that point. And
when you said like to me out the back of Nate's, like, all right, these guys have got an actual offer back on the table for Urban Art. Yeah. Like that could go ahead unless...
Yeah, I think I more or less asked if you would match it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm thinking of going, like, I want to ride for Native.
Yeah.
Like,
so I remember when it started to look like you riding for Native was a possibility, me and the boys had talked about it, and I think Nate was the one that's like, if you want to do something, like it's happening like now, and I was just trying to play it cool because in my mind it had been like at that stage for the pretty much forever, it had been as soon as you were available it was a yes, and that had been discussed with Reese. It was like, Reese, Kev, no question, yes, 100%. Like that was such a given from forever ago. It had been a thing forever. You know, I thought if Kev wants to ride for anyone, he knows he just has to say the word and he could ride for anyone. So if you wanted to ride for Native, you just had to say the word, and I was just waiting for you to, you know, and it's like there was this time of, we were both, you were like, look, you in your head, you're like, I'd ride for Native. Like, Regan just needs to fucking say something. And I'm like, dude, Kev can ride for Native. He just needs to fucking say something. It's like, babe, just make a move. Like,
that's so good. It was.
Yeah.
I remember it being like it was like fitting. Like I was like, yeah, this would really work.
Yeah. And it's, in my opinion, worked out fantabulously.
Yeah.
I just systematically flowed him scooter parts for years and years. And I just made Brisbane look so good. Like, it was so poppin'.
It's pretty appealing.
Until he finally moved here, and then he was like, I have to ride for Native.
Yeah.
That was...
it just felt right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was amongst it.
What influenced you to change your perspective / outlook on life over the years? That's such a hard question. I feel like as we talk about all this other stuff, answers to that question come out. You know, that's such a hard, that's a big question to address. But, you know, can you speak on that?
I think the biggest thing would be that scootering taught me one of the best things ever, which is that, and through this whole timeline that I've explained, like, a lot of it was just really unconscious. But it got to this point where I realized that if you love something enough, you will find a way to make it work. And in making it work for so long, I was like, it was very apparent to me that I didn't need to, you know, fall into these like other expectations society, you know, can put onto you. So that shifted a lot because I was like already doing it and had been doing it for so long. Yeah. And it was like the extra motivation to be like, how do I really want to curate my life? Yeah. Like beyond scootering. Yeah. Because I think I sacrificed a lot to make scootering my thing. Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I'm not sure if that answers that question completely, but that was like the starting point to me seeing the world in a different way. There's so many moments in my life where this question is relevant. A big shift in my life was transitioning into being a vegan. Yep. And then transitioning out of being a vegan. Yeah. Because in becoming a vegan, I let go of my worldview until that point. Yeah. To become a vegan. Yeah. And then that became my worldview. Yeah. And that's like a strong thing to take on. Like, yeah. Almost everyone I've ever met that was vegan, including myself at one time, like, takes it on as like a big part of their personality. Yeah, and it's still something that, you know, there's a lot of values and ethics that I have from that time, which I still hold to this day. But transitioning out of being vegan or you know, that veganism worldview, yeah, I had to let go of another world I once thought was, you know, what my world was. Yeah. And I think going through those transitions, I've learnt that my worldview has never actually been, like, there's no truth to... It's never been right. Yeah. It's never been right, because every time you thought you had it locked down, you 2 months later changed your whole... Yeah. So it's a very distinctive series of events which I now use in my life, which is that if I can change my mind on something that's so big and integrated into my life, if I can change that entirely, like, what other things in my life? Or if I was wrong about this, what else was I wrong about? What other things am I like holding on to that don't need to be held on to? Yeah. And sent me on a journey. Yeah. For sure. For every scooter rider, there's a whole life of very deep introspection, you know, that's gone into getting our lives to the point that we're able to live the way that we do in the, you know, with scootering being such a big part of it. Like, and I think so much of scootering is introspection, which is probably why I think the way that I do, or why I gravitated towards scootering in the first place. This question from Muladhara Mang. Keaton, my bro. I have to talk to him about
that last topic. He has asked, how has your spiritual journey affected your approach to scootering? Much love, bro.
Yeah, great question. I think they're like one in the same, which is that without scootering, I wouldn't have found like a spiritual way of like interacting in the world. It's like if it wasn't for scootering, I wouldn't have developed the ways that I think and move and so I think scootering has played a large role in where I am today, but in connecting to more of a spiritual. Yeah,
are you spiritual? How is your spiritual?
It has such
how's your spiritual journey affected your scootering?
Yeah. So, I mean, spiritual has this like weird connotation to it, but I've had like too many lived experiences now to not think that there's something beyond me and this world we live in.
There is a spiritual realm,
like there's, and to me I would almost say the things we don't see are more real than the things we do see. That's like where I've
the things we don't see but we do feel and think or like resonate with more real and stuff than the like things that
we see.
Yeah.
So
the things we see are just this surface layer. Like stuff. Yeah.
So if it wasn't for scootering, I wouldn't have got to that point, I don't think, because scootering is a very like introspective like thing to do. Like you're always like thinking ahead and you're thinking what you've done, what you want to do differently, how to refine it. And so I guess I developed those tools and over the years have developed like quite a strong spiritual connection with myself and a greater knowing. It's interesting because I think scootering has taught me more than anything else. And so like I can use the years I've spent on a scooter and look back on it and take like a lot of insight and wisdom from those lived experiences.
It's more like, how has your scootering journey affected your spiritual journey? Flip it around.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get to.
I get ya.
But it's like I can't explain it without it going the other way first, which is that I've taken this insight from my time of scootering and then sat with it and now can take a different approach to scootering. So it's like that level of awareness that I now have, and so when I scooter, I'm a lot more conscious of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, and there's an intention behind what I'm doing. But I wouldn't have learnt those tools without doing without riding scooters for so many years. So now it looks very different, and I'm not so much like trying to outdo myself. The intention is to have fun, to be creative, and to enjoy the process, the whole process. So it's like the parts I don't like, I've come to like. The things that are challenging, I've come to enjoy. And I feel like it's still such a big part of me, but I can now look at scootering and it doesn't play as big of a role in my life as it once did.
Which is so important to say. Because I feel like there's a pressure to be so all in on something like that, especially when we talk about how the lives we got and the way we think come from being so all in and being able to make success out of being like all in on it and following your passion all in and to then sit back and go, but I do see that it's not everything.
Yeah.
Big.
I like that. And you can almost like take it in a way that is like you can almost identify yourself to that, which is like, I'm this scooter rider that's, made all of these videos and this is how I validate myself. Yeah. And unconsciously, that's probably what I did on some level.
Yeah. That could only sustain you and fulfill you if it can last forever, and it can't.
And if that's all your identity is, then like it's gonna crash at some point.
So, not sustainable forever.
Yeah. So
especially if the level has a lot to do with it as well. If the final version of it is what fulfills you, or the level of the final version is what fulfills you, as opposed to the enjoyment that went into making it. Like if you can over the long term enjoy making videos and riding scooters, that's sustainable even into old age.
Totally.
But making high level riding videos where the skill level alone is like the be all and end all of the video, it's not a sustainable thing to get fulfillment from long term.
I would agree completely. And a lot of my outlook has changed on how I see scootering as well because of that. So like I enjoy seeing people have more fun than I do see people going hard.
Yeah, for sure. So, I remember a while ago you said, I used to let filming video parts, you used to drive it, like you used to really be like self-motivated. And more recently you've kind of, sat back from that a lot and been like, I just go scootering with the boys when we go scootering.
In my own words, I would say I'm like more productive. Yeah. Based on the time I actually do ride. And I think a better way, or a way that I would describe that, is that I'm more so now playing to my strengths. And like where I'm going to thrive. Whereas before I would be doing everything. Which isn't playing to my strength.
By everything you mean having the camera bag, organising the self-motivated
the crew, choosing a song, editing the video, organising trips,
which you were leading for like a good portion of time as well. Not only just with your time with me, but from what I can tell, even before, you were, like you said, self-motivated. And I feel like there would have been a time when you would have been leading the organizational charge and motivational charge, like even going back to more of the friendly days as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember there was like frustration there's always been like a level of frustration with me attaching to that like self-motivation, because I'm like, I want to do all this shit, but like no one else is doing it with me. And it wasn't to say, like, I don't regret it, because I wouldn't have learnt the skills along the way, and I wouldn't have the videos to show for it now.
For sure.
But in taking that approach and my identity almost being attached to that's what I'm do. Like at some point it just got too much to the point of like, if I lose scootering, like who am I? If I like break my leg or something. So
oh dude,
it's a scary thought.
I think about it every time one of my feet starts hurting and stuff. I'm like, like even just recently I was like, oh man, I'm so keen to go out riding and get the camera bag, went out, met up, and like my ankle was just playing up bad that day. And every time that happens, you're just forced to go like, oh man, like I'll always be in the crew with the camera amongst it. Like if anything, sometimes it's like, oh, that would be easier Like if I wasn't also trying to ride, I could just focus on all the other stuff if I wasn't trying to also ride.
Well, I always said the moment I couldn't ride, I'd become a filmer.
Yeah. It's like, I don't want to beg for it to happen or anything, but it's like, I'm always like on that precipice too. I'm like, you know, being the company owner and stuff, I'm like, it would be so perfect for me to just take on that role fully. But I'm also like, but I don't want to carry the bag. I want to get clips.
Yeah.
Like, well, then my foot hurts and I'm like, maybe I should carry the bag.
Yeah. I think they're the questions we need to ask ourselves as scooter riders, though. It's like, what are our strengths and how can we play to those strengths?
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
And for me, I think it is just simply riding.
Yeah.
Like I can do the filming, I can do all the organizing, I can, you know, but I kind of just need to be able to just ride. And if someone else can capture it, then that's epic.
That's the beauty of it. And I feel like that's such a big thing is for riders and you know, the higher level riders do have to be so self-motivated, like you're saying, that unfortunately they're like, I can do the organizing and the finding the spots and the picking the people up and this and that. But then I got to ride. And what it actually all takes away from is your riding. That's what loses out from it, like, which is messed up.
And it happened to me time and time again. I'd organize a trip or I'd organize to go to this spot and that spot to do this trick, and you don't get it. You don't get the trick, which is a part of it. Yeah. But you put in all this effort. Yeah. You know, to not get the trick. Yeah. And it's not a bad thing. But if there's too much of that going on, it drains out what scootering once was. Yeah, you know, for sure. Like, so I think everyone needs to find what works for them. Yeah, but for sure. For me, and in trying to answer that question, it's just made me look at things very differently and like what's sustainable. How can I enjoy myself the most? And at the moment, that's honestly like riding skate parks. Yeah. Like is where I have the most fun. And if there's a situation where someone, like a filmer, can come in and has all these spots for me to go to, then amazing. Yeah. But I don't think... like that's not where I want to put my energy into. Yeah. Yeah. One thing I've learnt to trust a lot lately is time. And just looking back at how many clips I've filmed over the years and how sometimes when there's big breaks in filming clips, it can just destroy it. In the past, it's just destroyed me and I've been like, what? Like what? Like it's the worst thing, just sitting there and being like, you know, my most recent clips came out in this and I've got nothing since. Or like, I filmed a clip this week, I filmed a clip this weekend, and then 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months go by and I haven't filmed another clip, and it's just like, the momentum's lost and it feels like you're not even getting it anymore. But lately, no. So I've been filming a part over the last, I put it as when Henry was born, which was 1.5 years ago. And I've been slowly, just when everything's perfect, I get clips. Whenever, you know, sometimes I'll go out with the cameras, go out with the crew, but maybe this person's filming and I'm just taking photos, etc., don't get a clip that day. But as you know, you've been on you've filmed half the clips in this part, I feel like, or you filmed a few of them. What I was trying to get at is the time between can be like so long, and then I can get like 2-3 clips in like one weekend, and it's just so important to remember how, like, to trust the time, like trust the long time. Like you think, okay, I'm going to film a part for the next 3 months. I'm just going to, you know, go out every weekend and get this part. Like, no,
For the next 2 years, save every clip you can get, even if there's 6 months between clips for some of them.
What I find like interesting, and like this ties into a few other ideas, like we've talked about time blocking.
Yeah.
And so like for me now, I might ride like once, twice a week.
Yep.
But when I do ride, like I get a lot
You've blocked out
done.
Everything else and you're just riding.
Yeah. And I've really been enjoying that. But when you were just speaking then, it just made me think of like in Australia, we can literally ride like every day of the year. Like the sun is always shining.
Yeah. And there's
like
never snowing.
It would almost be easier if you could only ride in this like...
Yeah.
You know, like...
The 6 months.
Yeah.
Or if
it's snowing the
9
other,
months
like,
or... Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just so cold that it's so hard. Yeah.
And so...
Crazy.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that there's like seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't like... Just because you got like 30 clips in a month before doesn't mean that that's how it's going to keep going. Yeah.
So, where do you live?
Today?
Exactly. That's a common question I think of, you know, the people asking. Yeah. It seems like you wake up on the beach every day.
Yeah, for a while.
Where do you live?
Yeah. It's new every day, and I do love that. So I've been living in my van for like a solid like 13, 14 months now, like pretty consistently, with like, you know, maybe staying at my mum's for a little bit and friend here and there, but predominantly living out of the van.
But good like weeks at a time. Only live.
I live out of a van.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been basing myself around Byron Bay for most of that time. Yeah. And I've just been really enjoying being able to wake up at the beach every day and just surround myself in nature.
What's a day in the van life?
I mean, it usually...
We got 8 minutes, by the way.
Yeah. It changes all the time. But I mean, a lot of my time is spent like cooking food. Yeah. And I would do that if I lived in a house anyway. Yeah.
Because we need food.
We need food, but I also like trust myself when it comes to what food I'm eating. Yeah. More than, what can be out there. So I'm cooking a lot. Yeah. Swimming a lot.
In the ocean? Yeah. 4 times a day?
Quite easily. Yeah.
4 times?
In the summer, without a doubt, for sure. Like,
man, that's a lot of ocean.
Yeah.
At least twice a day, like start of the day and end of the day, I have to assume. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's sort of like, for the last like 13, 14 months, it's been a lot of solitude, a lot of introspection. Yeah. And just really taking the time to reevaluate what I want to be doing and giving myself the space and the time to do that.
Just think.
Yeah.
So underrated.
Yeah.
So underrated. People live such busy lives.
It's ridiculous.
Have a chance to stop.
Because until you do it, you don't actually realize like how distracted you can be. Like calling a friend to hang out, or like, you know, watching a movie, or so many different things. Like scootering can be one of them, you know, like to go and clear your head kind of thing. But I think the most valuable thing for me has been to really just sit with myself and to really think things through. So, between eating and swimming and sleeping, I've kind of...
It's funny because it sounds like there's the stereotype, or not stereotype, but I guess the conception that you live the van life and you would, you know, have all this time, all this free time. But it sounds like you just live a lot slower and a lot more deliberately, and it's not like you necessarily get so much more done in a day or do so much more. It sounds like you're just doing the few things like waking up early, swimming in the ocean, cooking my food, sitting there,
it's
thinking a lot. Like you're not doing much.
It's living through what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
And I think one of the best things that I try to live by is how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
So if you're like getting up in the morning and having like you're rushing around like making coffee, making food,
quick coffee, jump in the car down the highway, like
the
that's
rest
your
of
whole
your
life.
day is going to follow in the same pattern.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
We rarely, and I can speak from experience, like there's so many years of my life which I wasn't present. So
yeah.
And so that's what I'm really giving myself space to do now, is to be present. And it's not easy, but
sounds worth it.
It's got to a point now where it's like if I'm not living presently, I'm not living.
Yeah.
Because it just flies.
Living presently means paying attention to like each,
it can be
each
it
moment
can be
like,
interpretable.
Yeah.
But say for instance, you could be cooking food for yourself.
Yeah.
You're listening to a podcast or you're having a conversation or you're thinking about what you're going to do the next day or what happened the day before.
Yeah.
Like you're not actually...
Or you're rushing through it to try and get to the next thing you've got to do.
You're not actually
food's
cooking
a thing
food.
you have to do. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's like if I'm cooking food or I'm going for a run on the beach or I'm swimming, like that's all I'm doing.
Yeah. When you're doing stuff, you're trying to be like in that moment.
Yeah.
Really in the moment. Yeah. That's gnarly.
And I think, the more I live that way, the less I can live the way I used to live, which is pretty...
Yeah. It's like you can't go back.
No.
Like, and if you did, it would just be so much harder to like deal with when you've lived like this. Yeah.
And I think ironically, the funniest thing about choosing to give myself the space to do these things is that I'm not like time is not relative.
Yeah.
Like there's no need to rush.
Yeah.
And I actually know that now.
Yeah.
But when you're like looking at the clock all the time and you're structuring your day, which I think is important to a degree. When it's overdone, you're like time goes way quicker.
Yeah.
So it's like almost like slowing down time.
Slowing down and doing less, you actually do it a lot more. It's not just passing by.
No.
Yeah, you're actually doing it.
And I can actually be, and it's like a muscle that you need to work in.
Yeah.
But the more I'm able to practice living that way, it means I'm more in tune with actually what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the more I live intentionally to be more present, the more in tune I can actually be with what I actually want to be doing.
Yeah.
So it actually means I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, where I want to be.
Yeah, for sure.
That just looks like, the living out of a van and living more simply and enjoying the smaller things.
Yeah.
And
should everyone try it? I
think everyone needs to try it at least once.
Yeah.
100%.
Sure. I hope that the people have, enjoyed listening to us talk about your, perspectives on scootering, a little bit of your perspectives on life, your story into scootering, and I hope it sparks a lot of questions in the comments that we can address in a future episode. So I would say
if you guys
expect to see Kevin on here again.
I'd love to be a part of it, but it's been fun, man. So
thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.